Hey guys, Stealth here. Welcome back to Cold Waters. Now, before I kick off the video, I wanted to thank you guys for all of your support for the previous Cold Water video. I really wasn't expecting that much of an upturn and that much of an interest in this game because it is so niche. Submarine warfare is considered a very small market because it can be rather dull, it can take a long time, and it requires a lot of learning before you actually can do anything to pretty good effect. So thank you very much, and let's get back into the campaign. Now I'm going to start over with the campaign because the previous start just wasn't working out that well. Considering that I didn't really know how to control on the campaign map, for some reason they didn't figure that that would be an interesting element to teach during the tutorials. So we're going to once again go up against the Russian submarines as well as surface forces. I'm going to take the Los Angeles class again. We are now in control of the USS Baton Rouge SSN 689er. Now this time around I'm going to be skipping the introductions. They are always the same, and we're just going to get into the submarine warfare part. Alright, again, actually we have a different mission today. Previously, I was tasked with finding and destroying an enemy submarine combination. One submarine with guided missiles and the other one being an escort for it. This time around, we have a different mission. Intelligence has discerned a pattern of movement. Actually, pardon, two movements of enemy at-sea replenishment tankers and tenders. A small enemy force, including one or two of these ships, is expected to sail from Murmansk momentarily for a rendezvous somewhere in the Norwegian Sea. You are ordered to find and sink this group. You may also get a chance at the enemy warships this group is intended to support, but tenders and tankers are the mission target. Objective: locate and sink them. Secondary objective: locate and sink nearby warships. Weapons free, maintain radio silence until otherwise directed. Alright, I'm going to, let's see, check the layout. We have 8 harpoon missiles, we have no anti-ship missiles, 12 torpedoes, 2 Mosses. I don't really need this many of the harpoons, so I'm going to switch to loading 4 Tomahawk anti-ship missiles, because those tend to have a bit more punch for when I want to be dealing with larger warships. So that should do it. Let's get underway. And I need to... there we go. Now the Norwegian Sea Zone, as you can see, is rather large, so it can take a while to find these ships. Hopefully I can find them before they complete their mission. They're departing from Murmansk, you can see that on the map over there. They're headed towards a rendezvous in the Norwegian Sea. I might be able to get them before they get to... oh, hello boys. What do we have here? We have a new sonar contact, bearing 101, designated Sierra 1. Going to close to about, I'll make that 15,000 yards, and man battle stations. And we are definitely not going to be maneuvering at 26 knots. That is way too fast. Now one of the things, actually, let me turn down the volume again. One of the things that I haven't explained previously is that there are generally layers inside the sea. This is maybe a bit weird, but there are different layers of temperature inside the sea, and I believe salination, so the levels of salt into the sea, and no, that has nothing to do with League of Legends. The levels of salt can differ the sound profiles, make it easier or more difficult to detect. Now you can see on the conditions tab here on the bottom right that there is a very strong duct, or a very strong layer, at about 150 feet. There it is, 154. Anything above that I will not be able to detect. However, some of these contacts are actively pinging away with their sonar systems. So there we go. This is a sonar return that I got. So we can hear them again. Yep, you hear that? Very light pinging coming in. Now, I can get signals down this layer, but I cannot really listen to anything above the layer. So what I'm going to be doing is ascending to above the 154 feet level. This is also going to be required in order to launch the larger missiles. The harpoons and the Tomahawk anti-ship missiles are simply not designed to be fired at this depth. So we're going to be leveling the ship up, currently moving up to about 150 feet. I don't want to get too much more shallow. Now, the higher I get, the lower the water pressure, and this means that I cannot go as fast. If I'm going to be operating at about 150 feet and then moving the ship at full speed, we're going to be doing what's called cavitating. This is a pretty intricate process, at least scientifically, where among the propeller you're going to have water bubbles forming. These water bubbles make it very, very easy to detect your submarine because there is, as far as I know, no natural entity that causes cavitation. Now, you might be thinking, why is the submarine rising without it being at a weird angle like you see in the action movies? Well, it's because I'm pumping out some water. Normally you just, in the submarine movies, you see submarines doing something like this, where they actually go pretty diagonally. You see coffee cups flying around, you see soup pouring out of the soup bowls in the kitchens. This is not always how submarines dive or submerge or maneuver underwater. As far as I know, normally they just pump out water and keep the ship level as much as possible to make life on the submariners as easy as possible. So we're just going to neutralize our dive planes there, and the submarine's going to angle out again. Now at this point I can still not detect them, but I am coming closer to the thermal layer here. I have 4 Mark 48s loaded in my torpedo tubes. If and when there are any ships nearby that really require a torpedo or a missile, I'm going to be switching my weapon loadout. As for these contacts, we know that they're 15,500 yards out, so that's about 14 clicks, 14 kilometers. One of them is 20 clicks out, which is on the edge of my torpedo range, if not beyond it. And those surface warships tend to be pretty fast. Of course, this solution is not entirely accurate. We don't know exactly where these things are, because my solution is only 45% accurate. Now I also have to make sure that I don't get too close to these guys, or they are going to detect me with their active sonar. At this point we're getting to about 200 feet. There we go, passing 200 feet. And soon enough I should be able to get a bit of a signature. I'm already listening to Sierra 2. That'll do. Alright, 140 feet, stopping ascent. 130 feet, that will do. Okay, so now that we can actually listen to these guys, we should be able to find out a bit more about them. Let's start scrolling through the signatures, try to find out what exactly we're dealing with here. What matches the profile best? This is probably it, the Krivak FFG guided missile frigate. It looks exactly the same as what we're hearing. So I'm going to designate Sierra 1 as a Krivak. Sierra 3 is something else entirely. By the way, this Krivak with its active sonar is now considered a hostile warship. Range, about 10,000 yards. And at this point I am going to start firing torpedoes, because I'm getting awfully worried about getting detected. Unfortunately we already have a wire break. This sometimes happens with the torpedo tubes. So tube 1 and tube 2 have been cut, and we're going to be reloading these tubes. Unfortunately I can no longer control these weapons actively, so they're just going to have to find the targets on themselves. Right, next target, and wow, that looks perfectly like a cannon DDG, so a missile destroyer, guided missile destroyer. You can still hear the cannon pinging away. Whoa, that Krivac is getting close. If that is him. I hope one of my torpedoes goes active in time, otherwise we might be forced to fire another. I still have a decent amount of torpedoes left. I don't want to be firing too many, because all the torpedoes that I fire are going to require me to go back to port and at some point resupply. So we're going to be firing another missile, more or less, sorry, torpedo, to meet up with the cannon over there. You can see the Krivac is rapidly turning away. This thing has apparently heard my torpedoes coming, or potentially detected them on active sonar. And it is trying to scramble for cover, trying to outrun the torpedoes or get outside the seeker cone. Which is not going to happen. We can see that one, if not both, of the torpedoes have acquired target, and this is going to be loud. That's one. And that's two. Okay, so that's one active sonar less to worry about. We also have identified a Dubna, and this is their tender. This is the one that's doing the sea replenishments. And there is a Sverdlov, which is another resupply vehicle. So I'm going to have to kill off both the Dubna and the Sverdlov. And I initially want to take out the cannon, so I might be able to show you guys some of the anti-ship missiles. Because these boys are starting to turn away and making good speed at that. My torpedoes at 16,000 yards, while they might still be able to get them, I'm going to be loading harpoon anti-ship missiles. Time to send this torpedo active. It's going to start looking for targets. No, buddy, don't go for the Krivac 1. He's already dead. See, this is very, very handy for the manual control that I now have over this torpedo. It's seemingly acquired the cannon. Yep, it's tracking. That cannon is going to be in trouble. Look at that. It's a pretty nice looking ship. Bit outdated for the 1980s to still have turrets like that instead of missiles. Even a secondary armament. And he apparently is making 30 knots. He's really, really trying to get away. But getting away from my torpedo is not going to be easy, buddy. There we go. Okay, so with those ships dead, I now have the opportunity to strike directly at these tenders, but I need to make sure that my missiles don't acquire the shipwrecks of the Krivac 1 and the cannon. So I'm going to be setting the activation point here. And a weapon is away. There we go. Look at this, buddy. You're going to see one part of the booster falling off, and now the rocket, or sorry, the missile, is going to be flying under its own speed, its own power. These things tend to be a lot faster than my torpedoes, but also a lot more detectable, and they can be... No! Hang on, what are you targeting? Actually, never mind, he's targeting a tender. Good luck. Yeah, I didn't think so. These things, of course, can be intercepted by CWIS system, so that's the close-in weapon system, and that's what you in Wargame have on most of the ships. It's that weapon system at very, very short range that tries to intercept missiles before they're able to hit the ship. Something else you can see these missiles do is sea skimming. They're very, very lowly flying over the seabed, or sorry, over the ocean, not the seabed, over the ocean, making it more difficult to be detected by enemy radar systems. And of course a tender is completely vulnerable against one of these missiles. One thing I found a bit unfortunate is that you cannot see the missile on the map. It doesn't exactly show you where the missile is, as opposed to torpedoes, for example. And it looks like we got another hit. Hang on. That's the Sverdlov. I misidentified this ship. Great. I thought we were dealing with another tender. Apparently, not so much. The Sverdlov was not able to intercept the harpoon in time, but we're going to be firing a Tomahawk anti-ship missile because otherwise I'm worried that the harpoon might not be able to get the kill there. Sverdlov is at a range of 16,000 yards. You know what? Let's have some fun with this guy. Let's see if we can get close enough to the surface to spot him on the periscope, which, I gotta mention, is not something that you will usually use as a tactic for detecting targets in the submarine. It's rather unusual. Now I'm going to be setting this missile on a downward course, which means that just before it's going to hit the target it should pop up and then strike from dead above. That's the plan. That's Sverdlov. Is he still making good speed? He's making 6 knots. That's actually rather slow. Alright, depth. 70 feet. 69 feet. We need to get up to above 50 feet to be able to use the masts. And this would also be a good time to explain what exactly I have in my conning tower over here. Because the submarine carries more masts than are actually explained in this game. But the masts that are explained, or that are in the game, are of course the periscope. We have an ESM mast, which stands for Electronic Signals Measurements. And I'm raising it now. This one is going to tell me if there's any active radars nearby. And considering that this is lit up to signal strength 8, we can see that we have a very, very powerful active radar nearby. Namely the one of the Sverdlov. That's the... hang on, where's my ship? This is the ESM mast. The other mast that I'm going to not raise for you today is the radar mast. Because at current, the enemy has a pretty good idea of where I am. And that is good enough for me. I don't want them to give away my position entirely. I don't want them to see... Hello, buddy. I don't want them to see where exactly my ship is. And that's exactly what you do when you go active with a radar. Alright, let's have a anti-ship missile fired at this ship. Let's see if we can track it through the periscope. Tomahawk anti-ship missile is now away. So from the periscope... The hell? He's still on a bearing of 118. Look at that. That giant plume says exactly where I am. And if I had more time, and of course yes I have time, I would go for this ship not with an anti-ship missile, but with a torpedo. Because I think that he's already been damaged far enough. So that, there we go, he's dipping up. And oh, he's been intercepted. That's the Sea Whiz. And he got killed off. So this Sverdlov is not quite as innocent as he may appear. Alright, we are going to take a different approach. I'm going to dive. And I'm going to speed up. See, now we're cavitating. This is at this point not really an issue because they already know where I am. And once I get deep enough, this cavitation will stop. There we go. Now I'm also using the dive planes at this point to quickly get my depth down. Because I want to start diving to about 600 feet and then rush towards the Sverdlov and jam a couple of torpedoes into him. Because apparently he was a bit more capable of defeating my anti-ship missiles than I had expected. Why he wasn't able to detect and kill off the harpoon, I'm not exactly sure. Passing 400. Make turns for full speed. 500 feet. Passing 500. At 1,000 feet this thing is going to get into trouble. At 1,000 feet depth you are, I believe, beyond crush depth. Which means that the hull can no longer withstand all of the water pressure that's being put onto it. Now we're going all ahead flank, and at this depth I can do so without cavitating. It will also blow out my sonar. I can no longer hear anything that's going on nearby, but we've already detected all the surface ships that are nearby, and this will allow me to quickly sneak up onto this Sverdlov. You can see I'm making 29 knots, whereas that Sverdlov, last time we saw it, was only doing about 6. So let's speed up this a little bit and see if we can rush up on this guy. 32 knots, we're still gaining speed. 33 knots. I think that's what we're going to level out at 33 knots. Yeah. Now, one thing I would love for this game to have is a sort of, I'll call it a wiki for lack of a better term. A wiki where it's going to show you exactly what these ships that you're firing at are armed with, so that I know exactly what to be expecting for countermeasures that the ship can deploy. Can it deploy a helicopter? Does it have the capacity to deploy, for example, longer range anti-submarine weapons? Can it fire depth charges? Because no, it's not the depth charges that you might be aware of from World War II with destroyers dropping depth charges all over the place. But at some point, hello, contact reestablished. At this point, the depth charges can be launched by a ship with a rocket, for example, and be thrown pretty far away from the ship. Now we already reacquired the Sverdlov. Where's the Sverdlov? Alligator, Sovremeny, Kara, Udaloy, Moskva, Sverdlov. Yeah, it's a light cruiser. We already reacquired it on sonar, although barely. Let's slow down to 1/3. Radar amidships. Planes in neutral mode. And let's continue rising sheerly on the ballast tanks. You can see that as I'm slowing down, the passive sonar array that I'm using is already getting something, but the VLF, LF towed, so my towed sonar array, that's the long cable towed behind the sub, is getting a far better signature. And we know exactly what this is. We don't know exactly where it is. So we're going to give the game a little bit of time to build up a firing solution. And then fire off one torpedo, and if he survives that, fire another. At least I should have gotten quite a bit closer to him right now. And with the initial damage that I inflicted with the harpoon, I think that he will not be able to get away much faster. He's still doing 6 knots according to the solution that I have at current. Solution 65%, let's speed that up a bit, 68, 77. Yeah, I think that this ship has absolutely no way of dealing with me. Otherwise it would have already done so. I think it's basically a remnant from just past World War II. Now, at this point I want to do another simulated torpedo attack. Or actually not so much simulated, but just a torpedo attack at periscope depth to see how the game registers that. If we can actually see the explosion through the periscope. We're at 67 feet. Get a bit less deep. 6.2, 6.1. And at this point, the enemy submarine is so close that I'm going to send my torpedo out immediately active. I want this guy to immediately start pinging away and start looking for the target. And that should do it. Periscope up. Scope is up. Hello, buddy. How are you doing? That's what I want to be firing at. Tube 1. Weapon is away. Torpedo fired. Sending him active. Torpedo is looking for the target. Now these sonar pings that you're hearing are currently coming from my torpedo, as it is trying to acquire a target. You can see that the Sverdlov seems to be speeding up. Oh shit. Oh, no, not the ESMS, the scope. Come on. We are taking fire from this thing, so he knows where we are. Alright, dive the hell out of here. Is my torpedo coming? Yep, he's getting closer. Oh, you gotta be a bit faster than that, buddy. I do not want to get killed off here, because that would make me look rather bad. He's gonna hit him right at the bow. Hit. Kill. 4 surface ships destroyed, 3 warships and 1 tender. Now, as a last act, considering there are no contacts nearby... Oh shit, we're flooding! Wait, one. We are flooding in the ballast department. Okay. Now, normally this is not something you would actually do, but I'm going to do an emergency blow. Which means that in just about no time at all, I'm going to be blowing all of the water that's currently contained in the outer hull. So the submarine is going to be very, very light all of a sudden. It's going to leap out of the water. Because that way... Yeah, this is not good. Emergency blow. This way, I know that I can contain the flooding. You can see that we are rapidly losing depth. 340 feet. 300, 270. Have you ever seen one of those videos where a submarine just jumps out of the water? This is that. This is the emergency blow. I just hope there are no enemy aircraft nearby, or we are going to be in trouble. Looks like secondary explosions there from the ship that we just killed off. And since there is far less pressure on bloody hell. Since there is far less pressure on the hull, we can now much more easily pump out the water that is currently inside the sub. Looks like quite a few secondary explosions there. Alright, looks like this section is still flooded. I believe that is the pumps section, or is it ballast? I think we might be dealing with a glitch. I think we might be dealing with a surface ship. How does that even work? This is a surface combatant that's firing its guns underwater. What the hell is wrong with you? See, the game still has some things that it may need to have a look at. Now we are still flooding. It's not the reactor department that's the problem. There. I think it's propulsion. Yep. This is ridiculous. I killed off that ship long ago. It is on the bottom of the ocean. It is never going to be firing. Get out. Seriously? By the way, I'm seeing quite a few weapons the way that you would expect them to be from World War II. So, turrets, firing directors, some radar systems. There's another fire director. The one thing I'm not seeing is a CWIS system. So the anti-missile system. So how exactly this thing is able to shoot down my anti-ship missile is something that I don't quite know. Anyways, we are no longer flooding. Submarine's alright. And let's not stay here for too much longer, because that ship might still hit me, despite the fact it's been killed off. If that's not a bug, I don't know what is. So let's end combat. Alright, Canaan 1. Canaan sunk, Krivak 1 sunk, Dabna sunk, Sverdlov sunk. Weapons remaining 12 Mark 48s, 2 Mosses, 2 UGM-84 harpoons, 3 Tomahawk anti-ship missiles, and no land attack missiles. Mission update. Good to hear you intercepted and destroyed the enemy replenishment forces. Keep up the good work. Further orders to be transmitted on this downlink. New orders to be sent on this downlink soon. And I immediately get a Bronze Star medal. Okay. Thank you very much. Quiet seas. NATO warships and submarines have taken up several strategic new positions, including some around the Norwegian Sea in response to significantly reduced naval activity. Yeah, no wonder. We were able to shoot down or able to kill off some of their resupply vehicles, as well as 3 pretty sizable surface combatants. I think those sailors on the surface ships from NATO are going to be actually quite happy about that. Sources close to the Pentagon say the war is taking a heavy toll on enemy naval ops and that their supply lines continue to be heavily strained. So this is in direct response to what we just killed off in that mission. New mission orders. To better plan for Soviet initiatives, NAVOPs have decided to insert a SEAL team by submarine in the vicinity of Gremika, where they will conduct intelligence and sabotage behind enemy lines. You must therefore infiltrate the area around Gremika and avoid detection at all costs. SEAL team is awaiting pickup at Holy Lock. Objective: sail to Gremika undetected, release the SEAL team. Understood. This is what I'm going to be doing next time. So join me in the next video as we're going to be picking up a SEAL team and then deploying them behind enemy lines. Looks like a fun mission. I am going to be weapons free. I am not to be detected, but I'm not sure exactly how those are going to be working together. Because if I am going to feel threatened by an enemy submarine or surface combatant, it's going to be an interesting situation to try and either fire my way through and not get detected. But that and more next time. Let me know what your thoughts are this time. I really think that the game has a lot of potential, but surface ships which are dead still firing their main turrets? Yeah, those were not secondary explosions, those were actual turret firings. You could even see the turrets pointing more or less at my ship, and that's ridiculous. So I hope that bugs like those get fixed and fast. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon for more submarine action.